Assalamualaikum and hi, my name is Nur Najib Hussein and my matric number is 01DDT20F1124.
Hi, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Nur Ifa binti Zaidi and my matrix number 01DDT20F1008.
Okay, hi, my name is Huinusna binti Asnan. My matric number 01DDT20F1071.
So today we are going to present about developing the servlets. Now I'm going to talk about how to arrange the servlet file and run it in the browser. The first is we need to know how to create the servlet file. So for the step 1, we need to create the new project in the NetBeans. And the second is select the Java web in the web application. And the step 3 is name the project, and for me I will going to name it as application 1. And the fourth, making sure that there is servlet selected, which is the class fish. And step 5, just click the finish. We don't need to check any checkbox. And now after that, you need to right click on the project server and select the new and then the servlet. So then you just need to name the servlet class and then just click the finish. For the mapping servlet web.xml, while creating the servlet, you just need to import the following package, which is the com.harborspot, and then just click that. After that, check the checkbox and just click finish, and then you can see the web.xml on the web pages. So to open it, you just click on it. So this is the code sample for the web.xml. We can say that there's a lot of function in there. The first is the servlet tag, which is to register and configure the servlet to the web application. And the next is the servlet name, to provide servlet canonical name, which can be used as a reference in web.xml file. And the next is servlet class, that a fully qualified class name of the servlet. And the servlet name in the servlet mapping is actually for the name of the servlet to which URL pattern is being mapped to. So this tag is to use to map the servlet class to URL pattern. And then the second last is the URL pattern that helps us to resolve the URLs, and then after the host and the context root of the application URLs, it will match it with URL pattern and pass it on the servlet class associated with by using the servlet name tag. And then the last is the servlet mapping that defines the mapping between the servlet and the URL pattern. So this is the sample code and the output for the servlet file. Okay, now we are going to talk about the mapping a servlet in the annotation. So the annotation may be used to replace the XML configuration like servlet declaration and servlet mapping in the web deployment descriptor file, which is the web XML. And the deployment descriptor is not necessary if you utilize the annotation. And at the deployment time, the annotated classes will be processed by the servlet containers. So this is the example of the annotation that can be performed. And the last is the how to use the HTML forms. So the first is just right click on the project server and just choose the next and the HTML, and then name the file for the HTML and just click the finish. So this is the sample code for the HTML code and the servlet code, and this is the output. So this is the before you submit and after you submit the button. To conclude it, this is actually that when the submit button is clicked, the container will be processed the annotation and the maps with and the maps of the class. So because of the method in the HTML is actually the post, the container will be called the process request function in the hello world class. So that's all from me. Thank you.
Okay, so now I will present about construct the servlet file to handle client request. Okay, so first we will present about understand HTTP GET method. GET is an HTTP method for request data from server, and then the requests are using the HTTP GET method should only fetch data, can be cached, remain in the browser history, and then can be bookmarked and should never be used when dealing with sensitive data, and have length restriction, and last are only used to request data. Okay, next. For HTTP post method, which is post is an HTTP method designed to send data to the server from the HTTP client. Okay, and then requests are never cached, and then do not remain in the browser history, and cannot be bookmarked, and have no restriction on data length. Okay, next. This is a difference HTTP GET and HTTP POST. For GET, only limited amount of data can be sent. For POST, a large amount of data can be sent because data is sent in body. Next, request is not secure because query string appended in the URL bar. For POST, request is secure because data is not exposed in the URL bar. Okay, and then GET request can be bookmarked, and then POST request can be bookmarked. GET request is often cacheable, and for POST request can hardly cacheable. And then for GET request is more efficient and used more than POST. And last, POST request is less efficient and used less than GET. Okay, so next this is writing servlet to get parameter value. This is for the syntax. Okay, for the syntax used for the get parameter values. And then next for index HTML, we use font face, formation and habits, and use the checkbox. Okay, next is the Java. We need to insert the import Java IO exception, import Java parameter, and then for servlet exception, HTTP servlet request, HTTP, and then public class parameter value extend HTTP servlet, and this is for the code for parameter value. Okay, this is for the setting request attribute, which is a request scope, application scope, and season scope. First, HTML file, which is a requesting website. This is the website that we use for the setting request attribute, and this is for the output for HTML. And next, the servlet code. The servlet code, you must insert the import Java, which is import Java IO exception, hash map, regex mention, regex pattern, and then for servlet, use servlet exception, annotation, HTTP servlet request, HTTP servlet response. Okay, next, this is the continuous servlet code. Okay, last, using forward request. For using forward request, use this code, which is protection void, to get HTTP servlet request, HTTP servlet response, and then you must insert this byte dispatcher forward request response in code forward request. Okay, that's all. Thank you.
Now I'm going to explain is data validation in dynamic web pages. Validating data on the client. Validating data on client initially check important features for good experience by catching invalid data on the client. Ensure all required form control and fill out the incorrect format. Reasonable and understanding of HTML, CSS and JavaScript. Ensure data submitted matches the requirement set forth for the various form. Validation on data on the client, which have the two types, which is for the type of client side validation have built-in form, and JavaScript validation. Built-in form, that validation that use HTML. Form validation, that features which is to discuss many places throughout in the module. The validation generally doesn't need JavaScript, but it has a better performance than JavaScript, but cannot customizable like JavaScript validation. While JavaScript validation codec that use JavaScript, the validation completely customizable and need to create all of it. Here the example for the built-in form validation, that which is have element label label that represent caption, the item that user have create have input that create input to interactive control for web bases that form used in the accept data for user, and interactive element for button that activate a user with a mouse, keyboard or finger to command the assistive technology. Okay, this validation data on the client for JavaScript validation example, which is have method that's a custom validity to message of the element, and have a report validity, which is method of HTML dot input the element, the interface that perform the same validity checking step as check validity method. Have a value that is invalid method also fires invalid on the element, which is if the event that is not cancelled, but the problem or report any problem in the user. Now let's take a look the valid data on the server, which is the on the server. The technique described the typical just the validated form after user has submitted data on the server. The input validation take place the server side during the post-batch session. All the language such as PHP and ASP.NET used in the server side validation. Now let's move on to the slide 2.4, which is produce servlet file to generate server response HTTP response header. First thing that you have to know, understand the format of HTTP response. HTTP response is the sent by the server on the client. The response that is user they provide the client with the resource is requested. Also use the inform the client on the action requested by carry out, and also confirm or inform the client without occur the processing request. In the HTTP response contain the following things, which is status line, response header, field and series HTTP header, and third is message by in the status line, which is in the response message status line contain have 3, which is HTTP version number, status code, and reason phase. In the HTTP version number, which is it show the HTTP specification that which server has tried make a message complete. Like example, HTTP version equal HTTP/1.1, while status code is a 3-digit number that indicated of the requested. The first digit define the class response, class of 2 digits, and any categorized first row. However, here code and description information show the request received the continue the process success, which is the action received successfully. Direction further the action must be taken complete the request. Client error show the have content incorrect syntax or cannot be fulfilled, as simple error that shows server failed to fulfill a value requested. Reason phase in the HTTP. Also status text it is a human readable text summarize meaning, which is HTTP /101 200 okay. So which is HTTP 1.1, the HTTP version 200 is status code. Okay, the reason or the phase in the reason phase. Okay, the 2. Now let's take a look to for 2.42, which is reason setting response header. Response header that we have to know, which is click manage, go to the configuration and system select advanced, type BIH header filter that respond the header to key field, types the name as frame option to value the sum origin, and if you click apply and type the BIR respond wrapper static expiry date in the key field, type the save in the value field and click apply and refresh the page back. Okay, this is last, which is a user rewrite response. The user rewrite response, which is the method that response interface return to response, inserting in the rewrite in a specific URL. The syntax, which is a variable response equal response rewrite URL or status. Okay, here the URL use, which is parameter, URL, which is the for the new response, status is optional, the optional status that for the code the response. Return value, the response object, and exception have a range, or in the exception have a range error while have a specific status on the rewrite status and type error. So here's some example, which is readily http www.exam.com 201. So that's it from us. Thank you.